Elvis sat at that piano on June 26, 1977, looking more vulnerable than anyone had ever seen him. He was about to sing his last song, and somehow, deep down, he knew it. The Market Square Arena in Indianapolis was packed with 18,000 screaming fans, but something felt different that night. The energy wasn't the same. Elvis looked exhausted, almost fragile, as he made his way across the stage in his white jumpsuit that seemed to hang looser than usual. What nobody in that audience knew was that they were about to witness one of the most heartbreaking moments in music history. Elvis Presley's final performance, ending with a song that would haunt everyone who heard it. Backstage, before the show, Elvis's band members were worried. Charlie Hodge, his longtime friend and guitarist, later said Elvis seemed like he was saying goodbye to everyone. He hugged each of us longer than usual, Charlie remembered. He looked us in the eyes and said, "Thank you for everything, boys. Thank you for the music." We thought he was just being sentimental, but now I think he knew. Dr. Nick Nikopoulos, Elvis's personal physician who was traveling with the tour, had tried to convince Elvis to cancel the show. Elvis had been struggling with severe health issues, prescription drug dependency, and what seemed like a broken spirit. "Elvis, you need rest," Dr. Nick had pleaded. "Your body can't take much more of this." But Elvis refused. "The people came to see me, Doc. I can't let them down. I've never let them down." Those would be prophetic words. When Elvis walked onto that stage at 8:30 p.m., the crowd went wild. But those closest to the stage could see something was wrong. His movements were slower, his famous hip swivels less energetic. His voice, though still powerful, carried a weight that hadn't been there before. He opened with C.C. Rider, one of his classics, but even that felt different. Elvis kept looking up at the ceiling of the arena, as if he was searching for something, or someone. "Good evening, Indianapolis," Elvis said into the microphone, his voice softer than usual. "It's good to be here with you tonight. Real good." But as the show continued, it became clear that this wasn't the Elvis everyone knew. He forgot lyrics to songs he'd performed thousands of times. He stopped mid-song twice to catch his breath. At one point, he had to grip the piano for support. The audience was confused. Some were worried. Others were just sad, watching their hero struggle. About an hour into the show, Elvis did something completely unexpected. He walked over to the white grand piano at center stage and sat down slowly, almost carefully. "I want to do something different tonight," he told the crowd. "Something from the heart." The arena went quiet. This wasn't part of the usual set list. Even his band looked confused. Elvis placed his hands on the keys and started playing the opening chords to Unchained Melody, the same song he'd performed on his last television special just 2 months earlier. But this time was different. This time, everyone could tell he was singing it for the last time. What happened next still gives people chills almost 50 years later. Elvis began singing Unchained Melody, but his voice was raw, vulnerable, filled with emotion that went beyond performance. "Are you still mine?" he sang, looking out into the audience as if he was asking the question directly to each person there. Halfway through the song, Elvis's voice cracked, not from vocal strain, but from pure emotion. He was pouring everything he had left into those lyrics, and everyone in that arena could feel it. "I need your love. I need your love. God speed your love to me," he sang, his voice breaking on the word love. People in the front rows later said they could see tears in his eyes. The tough guy, the rebel, the king himself, was crying as he sang. Here's the incredible part. Somehow, the entire audience seemed to understand that they were witnessing something historic. The usual screaming and cheering stopped. 18,000 people sat in complete silence, listening to Elvis pour his heart out through that song. Linda Thompson, who had dated Elvis for years, was watching from backstage. She later said, "I knew in that moment that Elvis was saying goodbye, not just to the audience, but to everything, to the music, to the fame, to life itself." When Elvis reached the climactic moment of the song, "Are You Still Mine?" his voice soared higher than it had all night. It was as if he was using every ounce of strength he had left to ask that one question. The audience was mesmerized. Many were crying. They didn't know why, but they knew they were experiencing something they'd never forget. When the song ended, Elvis sat at the piano for a long moment, his head down, hands resting on the keys. The arena was completely silent. You could hear a pin drop. Then, slowly, Elvis stood up. He walked to the front of the stage and looked out at the crowd. For what felt like forever, he just stood there, taking it all in. "Thank you," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you for everything. You've been the best audience a man could ask for." Then he did something he'd never done before at the end of a concert. Instead of his usual dramatic exit, Elvis walked slowly to each side of the stage, blowing kisses and placing his hand over his heart. It was like he was trying to memorize every face, every moment. What makes this story even more incredible is what happened immediately after the concert. Several people who were there that night had the same strange feeling, that they'd just witnessed Elvis's farewell. Mary Patterson, who was sitting in the third row, told reporters years later, "When Elvis finished that song, I turned to my husband and said, 'Something's wrong.' That felt like goodbye. I had chills all over my body." Jake Morrison, a music journalist who covered the concert, wrote in his review the next day, "Last night in Indianapolis, Elvis Presley gave a performance unlike any I've ever seen. It felt less like a concert and more like a confession. If I didn't know better, I'd say it was his farewell." He was more right than he knew. Here's where the story gets even more incredible. Unbeknownst to Elvis or anyone else, a fan named Robert Johnson had smuggled a small recording device into the arena that night. He captured the entire performance, including that haunting version of Unchained Melody. For 30 years, Robert kept that recording private. He said it felt too personal, too intimate to share. But in 2007, on the 30th anniversary of Elvis's death, he finally released it. When people heard that recording, Elvis's actual final performance, the reaction was overwhelming. Music critics called it the most emotionally devastating performance in rock history. Fans said it gave them closure they didn't know they needed. You can hear everything in that recording: the exhaustion in Elvis's voice, the emotion, the finality. The question that haunts everyone who knows this story is, did Elvis somehow know this would be his last performance? His bodyguard, Red West, thinks he did. Elvis had been talking about death a lot in those final months, Red revealed years later. He'd say things like, "When I'm gone, I want people to remember the music, not the mess." I think he knew his time was running out. Priscilla Presley, who wasn't at the concert, but spoke to Elvis by phone the next day, said he sounded peaceful in a way she hadn't heard in years. "He told me, 'Scylla, I gave everything I had last night. Everything.' I asked him what he meant, but he just said, 'You'll understand someday.'" Looking back at the songs Elvis chose for that final concert, it's almost like he was telling his life story. He sang "My Way," "It's Now or Never," and "Can't Help Falling in Love." Songs that seemed to reflect his journey and his acceptance of whatever was coming next. But it was Unchained Melody that sealed it. That song, with its themes of longing and transcendence, became his accidental farewell to the world. Elvis left Indianapolis that night and returned to Graceland. For the next 52 days, he was a different person. Those close to him said he seemed more at peace, but also more disconnected from the world around him. He spent hours sitting at his piano at Graceland, playing Unchained Melody over and over. Lisa Marie, who was just 9 years old, later remembered hearing her father play that song in the middle of the night. It was beautiful, but sad, she said, like he was trying to say something he couldn't put into words. On August 16, 1977, just 52 days after that final performance in Indianapolis, Elvis Presley was found dead at Graceland. He was only 42 years old. When news of his death broke, many people who had been at that final concert felt a chill of recognition. They remembered the feeling they'd had that night, that they were witnessing something final. The recording of Unchained Melody from that last performance became a tribute to Elvis's legacy. It showed him not as the larger-than-life superstar, but as a vulnerable human being pouring his heart out through music. Today, that final performance is considered one of the most important moments in music history. Not because of its technical perfection. Elvis's voice cracked, he forgot some lyrics, he looked exhausted, but because of its raw human emotion. It reminds us that behind all the fame and the legend was just a man who loved music more than anything else in the world. A man who, even when he was struggling with his own demons, still wanted to give everything he had to his fans. The Market Square Arena was demolished in 2001, but they preserved the piano Elvis played that night. It's now in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, with a plaque that reads, "The piano where Elvis Presley performed his final song, June 26, 1977. If there's one thing we can learn from Elvis's final performance, it's that music has the power to transcend everything: pain, exhaustion, even death itself. When Elvis sat at that piano and sang Unchained Melody, he wasn't performing for fame or money or applause. He was sharing his soul with 18,000 strangers, and somehow they all understood. That's the real magic of that night in Indianapolis. Not that it was Elvis's last performance, but that it was his most honest one. The night the king stopped performing and just started being human. And maybe that's the greatest tribute we can give to Elvis Presley. Not remembering him as the perfect superstar, but as the flawed, beautiful human being who gave us everything he had, right up until the very end. If this incredible story of Elvis's final performance moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear about the power of music to heal and connect us all. What's your favorite Elvis song and why? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to ring that notification bell for more untold stories about music's greatest legends.